Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Jerry Ann Albers. I'm the chair-elect of the Hunting, Trapping, and Conservation Working Group, and we're hosting the webinar today. We want to take this opportunity to highlight some folks working for state agencies who are working to build bridges to people and connect them with the outdoors. So we have a great lineup today. Your fearless leader moderator is going to be Samantha Petter with Petter Solutions. She's going to be guiding the webinar in just a minute. And then on our panel, we have Jenna Melanowski from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. We have Pete Novotny from the Ohio Division of Wildlife. And we have Nicole Meyer from the Vermont Department of Fish and Wildlife. And once we get going, don't forget, we can't respond to chat, so make sure you're using that Q&A button down in the center portion of your screen. The Q&A button is where you can put all your questions you have for us as we get going. And again, thanks for coming. We hope you enjoy this and take some inspiration from the great work these folks are doing for some of the work you're doing in your own roles. And with that, I will hand it off to our incapable moderator, Sam. It's all you.
All right, thanks, Jerry Ann. I do think our presenters can hop on screen now, and I'm just going to give a quick intro to set the stage. We're pretty excited to have everyone here, but just to kind of present some ideas is what we're going to talk about. We know that Americans need access to nature for their well-being. The COVID pandemic clearly demonstrated this as scores of Americans sought relief from the trials of the pandemic by heading outside. As conservation professionals, we witnessed this phenomenon through sold-out campgrounds, wait lists for watercrafts, and increased license sales for hunting, fishing, and even trapping. There are many proven benefits for people being outdoors, and the way Americans connect with the outdoors and access these recreational opportunities are as diverse as the flora and fauna species many of our state agencies are charged with managing. Research suggests that, such as research conducted by Dr. Stephen Keller and DJ Case Associates in 2016 and 17, referred to as the Nature American Study, that the dynamic relationship of Americans and nature must be studied and understood in order for us to continue to help Americans seek nature out and find that as a resource into the future. So today we'll get to hear as 3 state fish and wildlife agency leaders share their experiences in increasing access for communities in their states for activities such as hunting, trapping, and target shooting. We've referred to these individuals as bridge builders as they are strategically working to establish long-lasting relationships between these communities and their state agencies and providing support and resources for people of all backgrounds to take their first shot, go on the first hunting trip, and connect with a community of their own. So each presenter will take a few minutes to share their experiences, and then we will leave time at the end for questions and answers with the audience. So to kick us off, we're going to ask Jenna Melanowski to introduce herself and give a brief highlight. Following her will be Peter Novotny and then Nicole Meyer. Take it away, Jenna.
Thank you, Samantha and Jerry Ann, for having me. Yes, my name is Jenna Melanowski. I'm a wildlife biologist for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. And my program is a spinoff of the Wisconsin Cooperative Trapper Education Program. We've put on for the past 2 years the Wisconsin Women's Trap Camp. And the focus behind this and the reason why we began this was as a past trapper education statewide coordinator and over the past 7 years as an instructor, not only have I noticed this, but also the past statewide coordinator, Curtis Twellman, noticed this, and many, many other instructors. I'm sure Jerry Ann in her position noticed this as well, but we had very few women taking trapper's ed at the time compared to males, which is probably fairly similar to a lot of hunting classes as well. But even more so, the women who did show up to classes were fairly reserved, and I am kind of generalizing this. Of course, not all women were reserved or quiet, but they seemed less engaged. They asked fewer questions, and they kind of just went kind of with however everybody else was acting. Even if they had questions, they never really spoke up or really became engaged a whole lot. So as we continue to see women-led, women-held, other hunting programs and stuff like that take off and increase R3 and gain a lot of traction, we thought, well, why not us too? So the past trapper education coordinator, myself and other trapper education instructors got together and back in 2021 put on the first women's trapper ed class and are continuing to do this to this day.
Nice. And we'll be able to hop in and ask some questions on your experience since hosting that in the last year. Next up, Mr. Novotny, Peter from Ohio, could you share your experience?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate the opportunity to really talk about something that's really important to me. And that is the relationship that we have as a state agency with recreational shooters. I started out in our enforcement division, and I can't tell you the number of times I was at a gas station and somebody would see me in uniform and they would approach me and say, hey, my child or my girlfriend or my wife needs a gun safety class. Oh, hunter safety class, no problem. We got those all day long. And as I've been reflecting in my career, and there's no better time than now to really take a critical look at people, what they were asking us to do. They were asking for, show me how to handle a gun safely. In America right now, is the largest growth of new gun buyers. It was over 13 million new gun buyers last year. And of those, 40% are females. And the largest demographic of increase of new gun buyers is African Americans. This fits exactly what the mold of relevancy and engaging communities and providing what they need. So in Ohio, we have spent $40 million in range renovations. And we are building ranges with classrooms, we're building them with staff, and we're building them for that person that comes to us with the gun in the box saying, I know I wanted to buy this, but I don't know how to use it. And it makes sense that us as a state agency can step in and instead of just trying to guide them to hunting, to recognize why they're coming to us. They're coming us to learn gun safety, to store the gun responsibly, and they want to shoot in areas that are environmentally responsible, that have amenities, and that have staff. And the staff that we have, they're not just ones that are keeping the range safe, which of course we have those, but they're educators. And so we're staffing with educators, staffing with programs, and taking them through the ORAM model of how to become an active recreational shooter. And why this is important for wildlife agencies is that over $1.2 billion contributed to the Pittman-Robertson Act. $3 out of $4 are not from hunting. They're from recreational shooters. And it's our responsibility to engage them.
Some very cool ideas to dive into as well. Thank you, Pete. And now next up is Nicole. Are you ready to share?
Hi, yeah, I'm Nicole Meyer. I guess the best way to kind of start is by saying that I myself am an adult onset hunter. I grew up knowing that I loved the outdoors and I love nature, and grew up in a big fishing, crabbing, clamming, shellfishing family, but never touched a gun until I graduated from college and started working with hunters on a hunter put and take program and at deer check stations. And so I feel very strongly about some programming that we do here in Vermont that is really geared toward getting new adult hunters out into the field. We do a variety of programs to try to reach out to new and different audiences. And one of those is our Learn to Hunt program, which, like I said, is focused on new adult hunters, where we actually spend a weekend at like deer camp with them. That's going to be this weekend, actually, our Learn to Hunt deer camp. And we'll be pairing new adult hunters with experienced hunting mentors who are vetted and interviewed through us. And this is one way to like build community and build on that next step of, well, what do I do after my hunter education course, right? That was my biggest stumbling block as a 22-year-old who took hunter education and was embarrassed by the 12-year-olds who knew a ton more than I did in that class. We also are working with diverse communities through our program called the Vermont Wild Kitchen, which highlights cooking with both local and wild game and showing how wild caught fish and wild harvested proteins are part of the wild food scene. We actually have our next one, if you're interested, going to be on Facebook Live this Thursday night, 5 p.m. Eastern. Tune into our Vermont Fish and Wildlife's Facebook page if you'd like to see that. We will have Pavon cooking up some fish curry, which will be a lot of fun. And I do also want to say that we do also try to work really creatively with our partners at NWTF and Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, the Wildlife Society, to do events that are focused around hunting, foraging, the outdoors, and fishing, like our pint nights that we do, our storytelling events, and our events are all really truly focused on creating community, breaking down barriers, and creating connection.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And that's a brief overview that we've had of each group and their experiences. Excuse me. So we're going to jump into the first question and just, talk about, the state agency's employees and their experiences and in executing these programs on behalf of their agency. So our first question is, each of you represent your state agency and serve as leaders in building bridges to connect hunting, trapping, and target shooting to large audiences in your states. Through each of your experiences, what has been the one positive lesson learned that you can share with the audience? I'm sure there's many more. If you could share your highlighted positive lesson learned that others could implement, I'd love to hear that. And why don't we go just in the order of introduction with Jenna starting.
Thank you, Samantha. Yes. So I think the greatest lesson that I learned was to have an incredibly large support team. We're lucky the Wisconsin Trapper Education Program has the Wisconsin Trappers Association heavily supporting us all the time, not only with instructors themselves, but financially. And so when it comes to, and I'm sure you've seen it, when it comes to anything women-led, whether it's hunting, trapping, fishing, there's a lot of support for that. And there's a lot of people who want to be a part of it. So you get really quick growth, and you want to expand upon that as quick as possible. And you want to include everybody, and you want to have your program grow. And the only way you can do that, of course, is if you have the support team in order to do that. And if you don't have that support team, or if you don't have that interest, I guess, I think another great thing to have is somebody who is well known to advocate for you and endorse your program for you. Sometimes as state agencies, not a lot of our word doesn't get out as much, but if you find, a female trapper, for instance, like we luckily do, who is very well known and is very social media oriented, which really helps us out. And I mean, her name's Sky. She does a lot of work for us, and she really gets the word out and creates this backing that we need so much, and the buy-in, I guess, from not only our endorsers, but other people who want to join us.
Awesome. Thank you. Peter, what's your one win that you can share, your positive experience?
So meaningful relationships. That's what wildlife agencies do really well. When we have programs that are going to be focused on developing those meaningful relationships, whether it's a new user group or a traditional group, that's when I see the staff shine. And I think over my career, I've seen where we've focused at the beginning of my career, really try to touch as many spaces and places as possible and pass out, be at big events. And I have seen how the staff responds from that shift, going from that to more center focused, such as, Nicole and Jenna have shared. These are spaces that our employees love operating in. And when you develop those meaningful relationships, it's amazing the doors that open. And so for us, it's on those shooting ranges. It is taking that new shooter, spending one-on-one time, and being able to really put them on the next step. And we have seen it. And the people that are coming to our ranges are more diverse, both ethnically and gender. We have a huge participation of female shooters. And that's exactly what we need as an agency.
Right, so meaningful relationships. And finally, Nicole, can you tell us one positive takeaway that you can share with the group?
Yeah, you know, I think that really, to echo Jenna and Peter, one big positive outcome has just been the relationships and that have come out of this, and the new advocates that we have for us. And I think like one thing that I think about a lot when we're doing programs and creating relationships is, why should they be coming to us? Why are we the experts in this? And how should I be reaching out to them? And that's something that I've learned through this process of trying to reach more diverse and different people, and just experiencing the vast diversity of who Vermonters are and what they value, and then finding out that we kind of all value the same thing, has been really impactful on me.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Another question to pose, the second one is, what has the impact on your agency been in hosting these different types of programs? And we'll start with you, Jenna, and continue to go through.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't really finish kind of my introduction when I think back on it. You know, one of our biggest intents with the Women's Trapper Education or Women's Trap Camp was to not only recruit women into trapping, but also to create more female trapper education instructors, or female identifying trapper education instructors. And you know, we had 30 participants sign up the first year, 27 showed up, and of that, 4 of them became trapper ed apprenticeships. The second year, we had 41 women sign up, 31 that showed up, and of that, 5 now are becoming apprenticeship instructors. So that's 15% of our total previous female instructors. So we're growing pretty quickly as an agent, well, as a program, including women instructors who usually tend to bring in their children and kind of grow their family as well. Sorry. Okay. So I guess with all of this, the effects that has been on our agency is that we now have more spokespeople out there, you know, recruiting, retaining, and even maybe reactivating their sons, daughters, husbands even into the trapping world. We've created a amazing communication system via Facebook, our private Facebook group, where questions can be asked, tips and tricks, just that anything that comes up between all the women is discussed there. And then on top of that, we create meetups, usually at the Wisconsin Trapper Education Association Rendezvous, where we all kind of keep in communication. So all of this community that we've built of females or women, people who identify as women, we've created a ton of publicity in the short 1 year that we have done this, and it reflects very positively on our state and our agency. So much so that other states and other agencies have come to us starting to discuss maybe what they could do in their state and how they could roll this out. And coming to find that it's not an easy task, but you know, we're all willing to help and work together. So, and I think it really makes the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources look good, along with the Wisconsin Trappers Association.
Nice. So not only new ambassadors, but also new instructors, and new recruitment mechanism perhaps you didn't know was there. And also just, you know, ability to connect with other states too. That's great. How about you, Pete? What's been the impact of your target shooting efforts as you put more ranges?
Yeah, I love this question. So thank you for it. You know, big picture wise, you know, Ohio is the 7th most populated state in the country. And it's a definitely Midwest value system. And what we've been able to do with this investment in shooting ranges is signal to the citizens of Ohio that we find that firearm ownership is important, that we're going to be an avenue to promote the Second Amendment while also teaching all the responsibility. And so how that has benefited the agencies, that signaling has been picked up by our local leaders and politicians. And for the first time, we've been getting public monies invested into our areas to help build these ranges. And so there's been a huge want to put your name on these projects, and because it's the value system of the majority of Ohioans. And so we had this political will to invest in not only our ranges, but segueing, and that is other, structures and facilities, because facilities attract 5,000 people a year. And to be able to have that connection and have the political recognition that this is important. In Ohio last year, they did away with the concealed requirement. So we are positioned to step in because we're new gunners. We're receiving the first initiation for how to handle a gun, how to do it responsibly. We're positioned to step into that role.
So you're definitely finding a lot of new opportunities and aspects that perhaps you didn't think about as you're putting more ranges on the ground. Great. I look forward to hearing more about that. And then for Nicole, what was the impact for your agency as you started to do these programs?
Yeah, we found that people we never thought that we were relevant to were interested in becoming engaged with our department and the things that we do. I mean, new Americans were able to catch their own food out of Lake Champlain. Abenaki citizens helping us run food seminars and talk about ancestral ways of being and current ways of being. Local chefs in the local food system coming to us, wanting to, be involved in our programs, having, transgender hunter ed instructor come forward, more visibility of all of these different identities that are also involved in hunting, fishing, and trapping, and them feeling more empowered to be more visible in that community because they have our backing and the backing of the larger hunting and fishing community through us, right? So really these programs have brought us more connections and through that, like I said, increased trust in our agency. Plus now these folks have a direct line to us for when there are department related things that are having an effect on their community and vice versa. We had some stuff come up in the legislature over the last legislative session, and I was able to go to a few of our specific new partners to ask them like, hey, what's your input and what's your thought on this and how can I bring that directly to the legislature? And that has been very important.
Absolutely. I could see that playing out. We have questions posed here, and to just manage some of the conversation, I'm going to ask this one from Matt Clary. It says, I work for Florida's Fish and Wildlife Commission, and we're gathering information on empowering transgender constituents to feel like they can hunt too. Do you three have any experience working with transgender learners in your states, or nor of any others who are doing similar work? Nicole, would you like to respond to that one? And then anybody else too?
Sure. Yeah, we do have at least one of our instructors who is an out transgender instructor. I think my biggest piece of advice for you is to work at the speed of trust with the transgender community. There is a lot of oppression and violence, but there's a lot of real beauty in that community. We work with a local LGBTQ organization called Outright Vermont, and we go to them with courses, and that's one way that we have made that connection and are building trust that way. I would say don't rush anything, don't force anything. And if you are working on trying to do transgender focused programs, I would give it to someone who is transgender to do it. I wouldn't, as a cis het woman, I I'm not empowered to do, I'm not going to do that work. That's the work of someone in the transgender community. And I'd give them a curriculum with sideboards and things that they should discuss as far as our end, but make it a safe space for those folks, certainly. And if you want to connect offline, I'd be happy to leave my email address and phone number, and we can certainly talk about that. But seek out your local Pride Center is you probably have thought of that, but that's my big advice.
Really great insights. Jenna or Peter, do you have anything to add to that question? Looking for resources to support transgender communities in your states?
Yeah, that's a tough one for us. I know we have LGBTQ, and as a women's trap camp, it can be difficult when we try to label this. We ask for women identifying, women and non-binary, but still keeping those doors open for really anybody. The first year we did have a male identifying a guy come to our women's trap camp, and our doors are open to, anybody. And that's the thing is just keeping those doors open, making sure that everybody feels comfortable in our space. And that would be the big next step, right, Nicole, is trying to find that person within that transgender community, or maybe another minority community that we don't have already partaking in our camp or any organizational effort, and trying to expand upon that. That is a goal of ours, absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to ask what the next question. So glad to be here, from Ashlyn Halseth. Sorry if I said your name wrong. She's an adult, or they're an adult onset hunter that learned through a collegiate learn to hunt program. Is there a certain age group that R3 programs is currently focusing your attention on? And I think this is just a broad question. Are you guys targeting any specific age group? And if so, what does that look like for you guys? And perhaps why that group? And how about we start with Jenna, and then go to Peter, and then Nicole.
Our trapper education program is usually around 10 or 12 and above, just based on the ability to be able to absorb not only the regulations and how to set a trap, but kind of just the whole world of trapping, specifically regulations. However, I feel like this women's trap camp has been focused more on the adults. We have had a few children come, 14 to 17. I don't know if we had any younger than 14 yet, maybe a 12-year-old. But yeah, when looking at statistics, it does show that any mid-20s to early 30s is a good time to recruit hunters, trappers, anglers, and retain them. And not only that, but the majority of those are also the ones becoming instructors. So although we don't have a focus, it's great to see that age class specifically being involved on a greater level. Although we have anywhere, like I said, from minors all the way up to I think in early 70s. So basically everybody is invited, and we look forward to seeing them all.
Okay, how about you, Peter? Any specific age groups that you're targeting or catering to?
Well, Nicole, I share the same story. I was an on-site hunter in college and tried it then. And so I think what we are trying to do is also to approach this as a family, and to be able to bring a family group together. I feel that is a way that kind of gets within their tradition, right? And within hey, we're going to do this as a family. I think it allows greater participation by not only females, but also demographically. I think it's also to some of the family values that we see in our large Hispanic population. And so presenting ideas of not just just a fishing derby, right? Where, it's a youth fishing, being able to provide some opportunities for people like Nicole and myself And Nicole, you're absolutely right. The most intimidating test I ever took in college was a hunter ed one. And because I just wasn't part of that group, right? They're all 12-year-olds with camo and had, baby bottles with, with hunting license attached to it. So finding that space where we can make an adult the expert is really important, because when they take that back to their family, they need to be able, if they're going to teach their children to do it, they have to be the expert.
So you're empowering the adults and welcoming them in family environments, which is a great approach. Nicole, are you targeting any specific ages?
Yeah, our Learn to Hunt programs in general target adults ages 18 and older generally. But like Peter said, we do encourage if a family wants to come to those programs, we highly encourage that, because again, that's the reinforcement of community that's so important in our 3 programs, and having that support system to do it together and do it with. That's just for our Learn to Hunts. For our 3 programming, especially our like reactivation, like our seminars that we do, those are really open to all ages. We also do work on youth-specific programs, like our Youth Waterfowl Day that we do every year in partnership with the Missisquoi National Wildlife Refuge. So we do try to target age groups that are relevant to each cohort, because there is also something about that same peer group moving through these activities together and having peers and people who look like you and in your same age group doing those activities, right? That's an important thing too. So in general, most of our newer R3 programs, like our Learn to Hunt and mentoring programs, are focused on adults, but we do a little bit of everything.
Awesome. And I like the idea of, taking your audiences, considering who you're targeting, and then strategically offering something that caters to them. I think that's been a large thing we're talking about today. The next question we have a lot of great questions coming in, so thank you. So we just answered Ashland's. Dwayne Schroed poses, I've had friends recently get their hunter safety, probably because I evangelized so hard. Problem is, there aren't any great resources for where to go in my state outside of general unit information. Found that's the biggest momentum killer for these new hunters. Any recommendation, best practice, or pro tips for keeping the momentum going? How do we retain these people after they first learn how to hunt? Given it's a hunted related question, how about we start with Nicole, and then Jenna and Peter, if you guys want to add in, you're welcome to.
So if you are interested in keeping the momentum personally and for your friend, what I would suggest is to just immerse yourself in hunting culture through whatever kind of media that you consume. For me, that's following all these hunting pages on Instagram. For someone else, it might be following hunting communities on Facebook. There's some really great and really diverse hunting communities too, like Queers and Camo is all about the LGBTQ community in hunting. Irish Pirate is one that I follow, she is a Black lesbian hunter. So like following a lot of diverse and different, and I mean, there's like on Facebook, there's like 802 Hunt Crew, which is a Vermont focused hunting group. And I think like seeing all these different calls to action from different media that you consume, whether it be social media or traditional media, like subscribing to the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, what's their magazine called? The Backcountry Journal, Outdoor Magazine, Outdoor Life, like putting that in the forefront of your mind, in my opinion, can really help. From an agency perspective, offering next step opportunities such as seminars, webinars, things that are really accessible and easy for people to join, especially if there's some kind of motivator, like we'll be giving out a turkey call to everybody. That can be really cheap and like, oh, they're giving me a free turkey call. Yeah, I'm there. There'll be snacks available. learn, make it snappy and make some kind of fun incentive there, right? I think those are some ways that you can definitely easily keep the momentum going.
Awesome, really great ideas. I also know who Irish Pirate is, so I'm glad that you brought that up. Keeping hunters retained after they start the activities, and we'll extend it to trappers and target shooters too. What are your agencies doing, or what resources might you offer as examples on the retention front? Jenna, we'll go with you first.
Sure. So I'm not a social media person. I actually use my husband's Facebook in order to follow along with the private Facebook group for the women's trap camp. So sometimes not being socially connected, networked through those groups can be difficult in order to find and continue that communication with a lot of these folks. However, one thing, like Nicole said, is subscribing to some of these magazines. Another one is if you've taken a learn to hunt deer, go ahead and do the learn to hunt turkey, learn to hunt bear, do multiple different programs, because you end up seeing a lot of the same faces. You end up networking a lot more, exchange numbers with people, try to find a mentor within that community who will continue to take you out on hunts. I think at least in Wisconsin, we have a lot of people who are eager to bring people out and teach them how to be good at whatever their interest is, whether trapping or hunting. Another one that we're going to be working on is expanding, so not just having one camp a year, but possibly 2 camps a year in our future, having advanced workshops, targeting muskrat, targeting beaver, targeting canines. So really kind of taking this large group and making it smaller and keeping that connection alive. And then lastly, prior to our camps, we talk about our Wisconsin Trappers Association Rendezvous. This is a statewide event. It happens annually where everybody can get together and not only go through demos, skinning, trapping demos, but also just socialize together. So we tell people ahead of time to go there. And now I've already seen many women that I haven't seen there before come now. And it's a time to reconnect, like a true trapping rendezvous used to be like. So if every hunting group has that, which most of them do, it's a great way to keep in touch with your community, whether or not you're even an active hunter or trapper at that time.
Awesome, thank you. And Peter, is there anything you'd like to add?
So access is super important. We spend a lot of resource bringing people in, and what is the next step? One program that in Ohio, we are at the bottom tier for public access per person. And when I mean bottom tier, we're at the bottom. And so what we've done is there's this perception that the public lanes that we do have are overutilized and, not a quality experience. So one thing we've done is we actually done some surveys on usage and documented the amount of people that are using our areas. And we found that a lot of our public areas during the week are very much available. And so one of the most popular products we have is we have what's called a controlled hunt lottery. And that is providing a special hunt or a special place for somebody to say that they're the only person on a section. And through technology, we've been stepping through this. The great thing is that we've also incorporated a mentor only opportunity. So if it's not just the mentor that gets to hunt this special hunt, it's also the person that is taking them. And so getting those relationships and getting those friends and families to be together to do these things is really important. But we have addressed, or we're trying to address, that idea of access. We can train them, we can get people excited, but they fall into this idea, well, now I have nowhere to go. So it's our responsibility as a state agency to step through that and share those opportunities with them.
I really appreciate the ownership that each of the agencies are taking to connect new audiences with opportunities. A related question states, hi, in terms of program development, can you speak to how you formulated these programs towards the communities you mentioned? Did you conduct surveys, focus groups? What did you do to identify these audiences to move forward? And since we're talking about surveys and research, Peter, would you like to start off?
Sure. So we have done surveys, and we purposely placed, and I'm just going to use the example of the ranges. We put them within urbanized areas, and so 30 to 40 minutes outside a large metropolitan area. And we know that's important. We know that when we're doing these, we asked the customers that were using range we had staffed. The most interesting thing was an annual 1-day permit. The highest user group was millennials.
Can you restate that? Sorry to cut you off there. There's a little connectivity issue. I just want to make sure we can get this. No, you're good. Just can you restate that, please?
So in Ohio, we have range permits. We have a 1-day range permit and we have an annual. The number one user group for our were millennials, and they were higher female participation than the annual. But we found out they were coming to us one time. That was it. They were coming to a range one time, so we started asking questions why. And it wasn't rocket science here, that there were middle of nowhere. There was no amenities whatsoever, no Wi-Fi, no bathrooms, porta johns. And it was intimidating. You had a range staff member that was there that usually was surrounded by people that would be at the range every day, and they were very quick to point that the rules were not unified between ranges. And so we're basically setting ourselves up for failure. So we did the work. That's why we did the investment.
Documenting the need and finding opportunities to connect with those audiences. Nicole or Jenna, do you guys have any research you can speak to about how you structured and identified your program opportunities to connect with those audiences? Okay, cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, going to most of the programming that we've done has been in response to other other agencies' research that we've heard of, from like the NIAFWA Information and Outreach Group, or from like conferences that we've been to, regional conferences, and also just because anecdotally, as an adult onset hunter, I was like, I feel like this is a thing, which is not a science-based approach, and I realize that, but it worked. So,
okay. What is it? Copying is the best form of flattery, right? Swapping ideas, always encouraged. Okay, Jenna, do you want to add anything else, or else I'll move on to the next question?
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin has plenty of data on who's hunting and trapping on our properties or within the state, and it's well known that hunting and trapping, is on a downward trend. And when we look at the data as women being involved, we see that that's, is a low number, and that we can continue to monitor that number to see if it does increase. But that was not our driver either. Like Nicole said, it was a lot of anecdotal data that, we just noticed, and that's where we kind of based our efforts on.
Okay. The next question I'm going to pose regards trapping says, this is from Lisa Robertson. I understand subsistence hunting and education, but I look at trapper education somewhat differently. Don't you think that it is actually good news that women don't naturally find trapping and snaring a sport that they would be interested in participating in? Incidents can be quite brutal and disturbing, and it seems most women don't care to be a part of that. Jenna, given it's a trapping topic and you're speaking about women's involvement, has this been your experience, or do you want to share some insights of what you've learned in hosting an organized camp like this?
So I think what we're finding is, just by the sheer numbers of people who want to be involved in the women's trap camp, we had 30 sign up within 2 days the first year. We had 40, no, I'm sorry, maybe it was 3.5. I was on vacation at the time, so that's probably why it took longer. Last year, we filled 40 seats within 48 hours. And this year, we already have all 40 seats taken for late August of next year's class. So I think rather than us trying to find women to be involved with this, it's more or less creating an open door for those women to come in and join the heritage that maybe they've been a part of before or want to be a part of in the future. And you know, it's not just about heritage. What we've been finding is that a lot of these women are doing it for sustenance. So food, a lot of them want to do it because they want to have a natural form of food to feed their families and feed themselves. A lot of them are doing it to get their kids outdoors and get to know the natural world a little bit more. It's amazing when you go around the room and ask the reason why these women have signed up. In this camp, more than any other trapper education class I've ever taught, it's for their families, which I thought, I even stopped the class at one point and pointed that out. It was just kind of mind blowing to me. And so I don't think that we should, assume that women don't want to be a part of this community when really a lot of them are looking for an open door to be a part of it. They've just been maybe scared or didn't feel like they had a place within it.
And I think too that traditionally many women, especially Indigenous women, were mostly doing the trapping while men went out hunting and fishing. I think women were mostly setting traps and especially snares. So I think that that's kind of unfounded, and I think there's a lot of patriarchy at play when people are saying that, like, if people are saying that women don't want to participate in trapping, I think that's a really patriarchal viewpoint. But
and I should mention too that during these camps, we do, snaring for one is not legal in Wisconsin, upland, but we do practice the best management practices of trapping, and that's what we are teaching women. And that is a 25-year study that has focused on researching these traps, researching how animals respond to these traps and how humane, effective, the list goes on, and trying to make sure that we're using the best practices in order to humanely not only harvest, but also dispatch these animals. So we do it in the best way possible. And that's what we're teaching as well.
All right, thank you for those insights. Peter, you want to add anything to that, or would you like me to move on to the next question?
I do not. You have two great experts right here that are giving great viewpoints.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. The next question now, recognizing we're about 12 minutes out from the close, I'd like to leave some time for final thoughts. So we'll get to a couple more questions and then close it out. So this one was posed by Bruce Thompson. Sorry, Bruce. How do you deal with agency regulations and or processes that actually make it difficult for people to see procedural or cost-effective impediments that affect them trying to participate in consumptive outdoor activities? For instance, it can be quite costly for someone to engage in adult onset waterfowl hunting, often because of state, federal license and permit requirements. What do you see as the most challenging impediments, hard word there, to overcome aside from access to places for hunting or trapping pursuits? And I'm going to just extend this too, because you do offer a range permit, Peter, in Ohio. So how do you guys get around, cost of licenses and access? Are those the largest impediments you see, or are there additional ones out there that you're working to reduce those barriers?
So if okay, Sam, I'd like to talk about this a little broader, that, I oversee our law enforcement group also. And we have starting to take a step back and recognizing that laws get added every year, or regulations get added on. And from my experience, some of these laws just don't make sense anymore. And what, Jenna and Nicole are doing and bringing along these people that want to try to participate, we as the agency have to ask some tough questions of examining these laws, which we hold so dear to our hearts, and saying, what are some that maybe we don't have really that biological reason when it was created? And do we have the courage to say, we're going to do away with it? It's real easy for us to add stuff on the plate. But I feel that one of the impediments is the intimidation factor of seeing, somebody that breaks the law is now, on a TV show because they tried hunting. And so I think there's a fine line between celebrating when we do that person to especially somebody new. And so we want to make sure that we have that flexibility to have law easy to understand, that are applied judiciously. And that's one avenue I think we could break down the barrier.
Yeah, great idea, great answer. How about Jenna or Nicole? Is price and access the greatest impediments, or are there additional ones? And if so, what are your agencies doing to address them?
So one thing that the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department did recently, that is one small step, I think, in the right direction, is after working with our local Indigenous communities, which is in Vermont, mostly Abenaki community, we have granted free hunting, fishing, and trapping licenses to any tribal citizen any Abenaki citizen here in Vermont. So that's been really, really huge in my opinion, and one step in the right direction. One thing that we also do in our hunter education program is we are trying to get together like a lending library of gear, because that is one big barrier. We're trying to gather some clothing that we can lend out to new hunters, pop-up blinds, and then if they have taken hunter education and if they are going out with one of our mentors, we will oftentimes lend them a firearm that our mentor will be like technically in control of. Our mentor will be like in charge of that firearm, but the new hunter can feel free to use that firearm during the hunt with that mentor. So those are a few small things that we've begun doing. It's slow goings, but those are a few small things that we've done.
Awesome. And Jenna, anything else you'd like to add? Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Next question. Any recommendations on how to reach out for participants that are not outdoor oriented or associated with hunting organizations, but interested in hunting, I'll say trapping or target shooting too? This gentleman, Mr. Darby, runs a junior quail hunt on federal lands and would like to expand their reach. Any ideas there? And I'll leave it to whomever wants to take it first, because this could apply. How do you reach beyond the target audience to do more of the recruitment style? How do we get new audiences engaged, and what's been successful for you?
I would say reach out to already established organizations, whether or not they are outdoor focused. So like I said, we did outreach to our local youth LGBTQ Camp Outright, and we brought bow hunter education there, and the kids loved it. And we do a lot of things like that, whether it's like the American Legion girls or the Girl Scouts or Scouts or others. For some reason, all I can think of is Scouts right now. It's like almost 4 o'clock. My brain's dead. But yeah, go to already established organizations. We've had a lot of success with going to farmers markets, and a lot of success with advertising some of our events or goings on at local food co-ops. And those are places where there's already kind of a community of like-minded people. And as far as food goes, they're there because they value local food. So we are also talking about local food, local wild food, and we fit in right there that way. So I would highly suggest going and advertising to any local organizations. You have a captive audience there and a group, and they're a group of people who already like are together doing things, and maybe they'll be together doing your thing next.
Yeah, a great strategy to connect with other local community, we'll call them infrastructure, right? And establish organizations that have some of that trust you're talking about too, amongst them, and then forming relationships on behalf of the agency. It's a great strategy. Jenna or Peter, as we're coming up on the hour, anything you guys want to share to help Mr. Darby out? Okay. All right. Well, we are 5 minutes out, and I'm going to ask that the group just quickly, you know, let me phrase it this way. Tell us where you might see your program going next, and any resources or projects you have planned to tackle, and then wrap that up with your closing thoughts and parting words as well too. So getting a little creative here, but where are you going in the future? What's your next thing you're tackling right away? And then any closing thoughts you'd like to share with the organization or the people attending the webinar today. And so Jenna, we'll start with you just because of the order.
So our goal is definitely to expand, of course, and then focus more on individual interests. Specifically this spring, we are going to be doing a trap for food, targeting beaver, which is absolutely delicious. It's actually my favorite meat. And I was vegetarian for 7 years, decided to go back to eating meat. Now I strictly eat game, and I heavily rely on beaver and deer mostly, but really especially beaver. So I'm using that to kind of help to help other women and other people in general expand on that. Hoping to get more instructors involved, teach them in on how to, complete these camps. So they too can hold their own, not only here in Wisconsin, but throughout nationally, since Wisconsin's was the first one in the nation. And on top of that, we've been talking about doing workshops for the non-trapper, how to engage with them. One question I saw was how to teaching people how to get dogs out of traps. We do have a lot of bird hunters out here, so teaching them how to get them out of a foothold or other things without hurting the animal. And then also just the benefits of trapping and kind of like why trapping matters to the general public, and not just being focused on trappers in general. So that's something that we look to expand upon in the future, and look forward to having more and more people coming through the process and yeah, growing.
Awesome, thank you. Peter, would you like to offer that insight real quick?
The just imagine if, right, scenario of just imagine if recreational shooters can look at a wildlife agency and say, that's part of what I do, even though I am not interested in hunting. I think as an agencies, we've been for so long trying to say, well, if you come to our range, we're going to make you a hunter, or try to. We should always give that opportunity. But maybe we recognize that it's okay that somebody comes to our ranges, contributes to this incredible funding model, and we embrace them by providing them the services that they need. So my parting tips, I guess, would be pay very close attention to the way a customer asks about your product or what you do, because a lot of it is the assumptions that we make that that's exactly what they want. And I go back to that patch story. That's not what people were asking me, but that's all the tool I had. So pay attention to what your customers are saying.
Very, very wise insights. And Nicole, last but not least.
I would say, Peter, you stole a little bit of what I was going to say. I think that it's so important to provide these opportunities, but also know that it's also not for everyone, and that's okay. And people still love and value wildlife and the outdoors and nature, and we all do it in different ways, And I'm a hunter, but probably the number one way that I connect to wildlife is through bird watching, which gives me a leg up on duck season. But that's probably the number one way that I myself connect, right? And then I also just want to say, as some parting wisdom, man, it's so hard to work slowly, but to create relationships that last and that are trusting and real relationships, you need to go slow, and you need to work at the speed of trust, which I hate going slow on things. But when you're building a relationship, it really is a give and take. And one of the big things that I've been asking myself is, so what can I give this community before I 5 times before I even ask for anything in return? What am I giving? What do they need? And not just, oh, I'm giving them this great seminar. Who cares? That's part of my job. What am I really giving to them?
Great, Wayne. Thanks for tying back into the introduction. Very good insights. It is the top of the hour. We know we didn't get to some questions, but I think we answered like 12, so bravo. Panelists, that's great. If you're looking to learn more information, this will be posted to the Wildlife Society's YouTube channel to follow up. And I think you can put it into the chat if you'd like to connect with any of the speakers and reach out. We do thank everybody for their time and interest in participating in this webinar, from the panelists and the Jerry Ann and the Hunting and Trapping and Conservation Working Group, the Wildlife Society, and then the Wildlife Society as a whole for offering this platform to share information and connect new people with new opportunities outdoors. So thank you again for joining us. We look forward to the next webinar, which you can find information on the Wildlife Society's page. Thank you.